All right, Andrew Warner, welcome to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey.
How's it going? So Andrew Warner is normally the interviewer, but today the tables have turned. Andrew Warner is the founder and CEO of Mixergy, one of the original, possibly first places online to be doing interviews with founders like Gary Vaynerchuk, Barbara Corcoran, Graham of YCombinator. All these people have been on your show and a ton more.
Yeah.
In his 20s, Andrew sold a company with his brother. They were doing something like $36 million a year in revenue. And then he started Mixergy to interview other founders about how they also started. And Andrew's also about to release a book called Stop Asking Questions, How to Lead a High Impact Interview and Learn Anything from Anyone. So Andrew, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
So speaking of learning anything from anyone, let's talk about interviewing.
Yep.
So I remember back in the day, I always listened to every Mixergy thing. I had a subscription for a long time. I've even been on it one time, and that was like my highest sales.
Yeah. Oh,
ever.
really?
Yeah. It was one of my highest sales ever from that.
What were you selling?
I think it was maybe it was like the Sumo Business Blueprint or something back then. We're talking about how to validate a business.
You know what I admired about you? That there was one interview that you did about copywriting, and you came in wearing these like overly sized glasses to just make it look interesting. The attention to that detail, to go out and buy the thing or find the thing to make it dress up, I always loved that.
Well, if you saw what my glasses looked like in elementary school, they were probably bigger than that.
They were original glasses, and I just thought you were putting it on.
So before we go into all the podcasts and business stuff, I was always intrigued by your question style. So you were one of the first. Were you really like the first person online to do interviews and stuff?
There was one other person, Gregory Gallant. I met him at a conference. He was doing it, and I thought, this is great. I want to do this type of interview too. And so I talked to him. I asked him how he did it, and then he stopped doing it, and I became the person who did it. This was like before podcasting was a thing. You'd have to download the audio file, put it on your device.
Even a thing.
Yeah, it was just...
Yeah, you were like the original Guy Raz from like How I Built This. But like, so, okay, here's one thing I always thought was contentious about it.
Go ahead. Well,
you would always ask very private questions.
Yes.
Now, you would ask questions, and I know you kind of like idolized Howard Stern. I listen to Howard Stern all the time.
All the time.
Is this still your style? Is that a thing, or has it like changed? Because you would ask people like, when'd you lose your virginity or something?
I do it in person, like we were talking about.
What the hell is that about? That is so crazy.
Here's why. When I was talking to Alexis Ohanian, I kept pushing him to explain
Founder
to
of
me,
Reddit.
Founder of Reddit. Yep. Why did he sell Reddit early on? And he just kept saying, not going there, not going there. This is a company that eventually became multi-billion-dollar business. He sold it in the early stage to Condé Nast. It wasn't until later on that he published an article about how he had a family member who was sick and he needed to just take some space, and that's why he sold the company. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is he didn't sell it because it was the perfect valuation. He didn't sell it because that was the right time. He sold it because something personal happened in his life that dictated the business. And so if we exclude the personal, we're not understanding the business. Now, how do I do it without being so overly personal that it feels uncomfortable? That's where the techniques come in over years of learning. And one of them, frankly, I got from Howard Stern.
So, okay, so you're writing a book about interviewing. Like, what prompted that? I'm assuming just like a ton of people would ask you, like, how do you interview like thousands of people?
You know, what would happen is I would come up with a technique about how to get somebody to be open, and I wrote it down for myself. And the way that I did it was, if something worked, I'd go through the transcripts and see, what is it that worked? How did I get this person to be so open? And if I found it, I just put it in a Google Doc and I'd name it. And if it didn't work out, I'd get together with my producers and go, what did I do that was so stupid that it didn't work out? And then we just experiment on a new approach next time. I've been doing 2,000 interviews, so there's a lot of time to practice and experiment and see. So for example, how do you get somebody to be open? Whether it's a cab driver, a new person who you're meeting, or an interview. One of the things that Howard Stern would do is he'll ask like this double-barreled question. He'll say something like, is it inappropriate to ask you if you just had sex last night? Right? He's asking these two questions. And when you ask people two questions, they will almost always pick the easiest of the two questions. And if they don't do that, they do both. So you ask them the two questions. Is it inappropriate to ask you if you had sex last night? Now they're going to pick it's inappropriate to ask me that question if they don't want to answer the one about sex. And I have actually gone through my transcripts and I've seen it. The founder of, what is that? The customer service email, Zendesk, yes. I asked him if it's inappropriate to ask him about his wife. He goes, yes, it is. And you could see it in the transcript. And I immediately move on to me telling a personal story and then continue back to business. And so if you learn these techniques, you write them down the way that I did, and inevitably my producers would use them so that they could have better pre-interview conversations. And I started sharing with others, and before long it became this collection of things that people used, and I decided let's turn it into a book.
Man, I'm glad you do these interviews online because no one can punch you. Like if you ask a bad question.
No, they wouldn't punch me. They would hug me. If you have a real personal conversation, people love you. The problem is that we have non-personal conversations. And so they go really boring. We don't really get to understand the other person. And then we don't get to understand about ourselves.
Man, so is this interview like super boring for you? I'm not asking crazy
We haven't
questions.
gotten into it. Let me ask you this. Can we talk a little bit about what you said the other day about kids for your life?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Okay. So you were super open with me and you said that you have a plan for having kids.
2023.
Okay, I didn't know if we were allowed to say the thing. Right? Doesn't that make it more personal, more meaningful to talk about this vision? It's a little bit dangerous to bring it up to say, I want to have kids, but it's more personal. And then I told you about how I went into this whole process of how do I find somebody who I care enough to marry, right? And it's now we're getting into something that's meaningful that maybe you could learn from, maybe I could pick up something. That's what I think real conversations are about.
What do you think about this? This is kind of a little off topic, but what about like woo-woo people? You know what I'm talking about? Woo-woo people. You lived in San Francisco before.
Yep.
Right? You know what it's like. There's people that are like, they're always like, I want to have deep conversations, and I'm only into deep conversations. I don't like shallow talk. But what that tends to mean is it means sad stuff. Every time. So sometimes we're at a dinner and I'm with like a bunch of these people or something like that. And they're like, everyone go around and tell something interesting about your life. And they go real deep. It's like, when I was 5, I was molested by, I'm like, God damn, like,
but look,
I don't want to hear this right now.
If it's not what you care about, it's your obligation to shift the conversation away from it. So when I was a kid, I didn't know how to have conversations. Then I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I got good at conversations. And then I realized Dale Carnegie's office was right in Midtown Manhattan, not too far from me.
Ooh.
I went over, I knocked on their door, and I said, can I work for you for free? I said, what? I go, I just want to understand more about how to build these relationships. I see the book is good. I want to see how you use it. And I said, okay. I work for them free, and I come back over the years and work with them. The thing that I learned about them, though, was Dale Carnegie's approach was always whatever the other person's interested in, it's your duty to tap into it and let them go off on it. So if they're interested in postage stamps, you ask them about postage stamps, they love you. If they're interested in, the sad things about their lives, you let them do it. My one challenge with Dale Carnegie is that I don't want to make it about what's interesting to you. It's got to be a combination. If I'm not interested in your personal feelings and the thing that happened to you when you were a kid, even if it's you're molested and I can't get into it, it's my obligation to say, what am I curious about and that you want to talk about? And we'll talk about the combination of my interest and yours. So absolutely shift away.
Do you try to ham it up like on the interview? Like, do you try to agitate them to get them really into it? Because I've noticed this before. So we used to, like at AppSumo, we used to produce a ton of different courses and stuff. And sometimes there'd be a very talented person that we get on camera, but they're not great on camera. And so I would have to like really agitate them. So there's this one guy who is a venture capitalist and a very smart guy, but wasn't great on camera. And I was just like, well, would you ever invest in a company outside of Silicon Valley or something like that? And he was like, no, I wouldn't tend. And I was like, that is so boring on camera. So I'd be like, I heard that Austin's the best place you could possibly pick to invest in a company. He was like, no, it isn't. And I kept egging him on. And he finally got so pissed off. I was like, that was good on camera.
Yeah.
Do you egg people on like that? Is that
I definitely do. I think it's important to do it. When I used to teach Dale Carnegie's class, one of the things that we would say is, everyone is articulate if you smash them in their kneecaps with a 2x4, right? And so what's the thing that smashes them in their kneecaps with a 2x4? Bring that up, get them angry, and then I do think that you get to know people.
Oh my God, this sounds so contentious. I don't know if I'm that mean. Well, I am mean, but like not that mean.
Well, the thing is though that I also think that people can tell if you're being mean to be mean and if you're being mean to bring out the best in them. And they could read your micro gestures. They could read what you're trying to do. And so they could tell if I'm doing it just to be mean and to be a jerk. And they could also tell if I'm doing it to draw them out and make them more interesting.
What about pre-interview? Okay, so like right now, I'm drinking a Red Bull. I got a little Topo Chico knockoff over here. Is there anything you do pre-interview to get people all riled up? I'm assuming caffeine. I'd like it if people are caffeinated when they're talking.
I always do my interviews remotely, and so I don't do that. I can't. I would bring them whiskey if I could. I feel like we have better conversations when we're drinking.
Ooh.
No, what I find is it's helpful to have a couple of it's helpful to talk to people a little bit before the interview. So there's this one entrepreneur, Jonathan Trist. He was someone I was supposed to interview at a conference. He was an investor. He had all these opinions about how to build a good company. And as I'm looking him up, I realized he doesn't have much experience building companies. In fact, the money that he's using to invest came from his parents. And so in my mind, I'm going, that seems like a guy who's just daddy got him where he is, I can't not bring that up. But I can't just smash him over the head with it in the interview, because then it loses trust. So before the interview started, I said, I think if we don't bring this thing up, people who know about the fact that your money comes from your parents are going to say that all you are is daddy's rich kid who's getting to invest in startups and then pontificate. And he goes, by all means, Andrew, you should absolutely bring that up if that's what people are thinking. And so we get into the interview. I say, do you only have money because of your parents, and so maybe you don't have much credibility in the startup space? Now, instead of being angry or restrained with me or just clamming up, he understood where I was coming from. He knew why I was doing it, and he got open about it. He said, Andrew, yes, my money does come from my parents. That was the first round. After I proved myself there, I was able to raise more money from other people. I don't have as much entrepreneurial experience as the people I'm investing in, but I did have this design agency. Here's how well it did, and here's what I learned from it. And now he got to talk about it, but everyone in the audience who didn't realize that I had a conversation with him before was cringing when I first said, didn't you just get your money from your daddy? So cool. Yes, you do need to have a conversation before.
That's very interesting. So let's talk about like a little bit of the business side of podcasting. So when you started Mixergy as an early internet show, is that what it called, like internet show back in the day?
Podcast. Yeah,
there was no YouTube, there's no podcast. Did you mean for it to be a business, or was it just a way to like interview people? Like what was the reason? I'm trying to figure out the reason I started this. I think it's just fun to like have.
Why did you start it? You're getting really good at it. I feel like, you know what, you're always good at this stuff. I feel like you've gotten good at the machine part of the creation.
Got a little better at it.
The stupid emails are like on point all the time. They come in. The recordings are interesting. The way that you now clip out parts of the show and make it into small YouTube videos. The whole thing is like so organized.
Well, selfishly, here's what I get out of it.
Yes.
Whenever I have one of these conversations, so I write all these questions out myself, right? I have to. So I have to write all these questions out so it's kind of like an organized show. Otherwise, it just rambles on into nothing. And I have to think about that person, what to ask them. Then I think, oh, this would be an interesting question to ask them. And then later, I have to make this into a post and an email and titles and clips. So I kind of have to go through it, and I listen on like 2x speed or 3x speed, like on VLC player. And I take notes on it.
Okay.
So I have to take my own notes, and therefore I remember it. And then I'll end up watching my own clips. Like I watch my own podcast all the time.
I can't believe you do that.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And so I watch it. And so I feel like I personally just learn a bunch, and hopefully other people do. I don't know if that's true or not, but I hope that I learn from it. So I try to get people I want to interview about things.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So when you came in here, beyond like what whoever's out there wants to learn, what's the one thing that you said, I need this one thing selfishly?
I'm trying to figure out the reasoning behind the podcast necessarily.
Why are you doing your podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's just interesting, like when you look at YouTube stats, like what hits and what doesn't. Like interviews are never as popular as like a proper YouTube, like, hey guys, this is Neville training. That one's always going to be more popular. But the watch time on these is through the roof. And get this, I'll go to like a conference or something, some CEO will be talking and be like, oh, Neville, right? Like I watched your thing with whatever. And I'm like, really? Wow, that's crazy that you did that. They never talk about the training videos. They talk about like the interviews.
Yeah.
My mom listens to the interviews. Hi, Mom. And like that kind of stuff. So I don't know. There's something to it. I don't know. Maybe like having other people with credibility gives me more credibility. I don't know. Are these all reasons to have a podcast?
It absolutely rubs off on you, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one. I think the relationships that start off as a podcast could end up going on and becoming long-term friendships, which then is really useful for work and for life. When I started, though, I just wanted to not screw up again in business. I came out of that one business that you talked about where we did over $30 million thinking I could do anything in business. I'm not great in life. I'm not great in sports, but I'm great at business. And then when the thing didn't work out, the next thing that I did, which was invitations, I just thought my world was rocked and I want to never make that kind of mistake again. And I said, I'm going to find people who've done things well and just talk to them and understand what's worked for them. And I couldn't just call them up and be needy, but I could do this, this podcast and ask them questions.
So
that helped.
So you've had people, I mean, like Barbara Corcoran and Gary Vaynerchuk and all that kind of stuff. Do you reach out? Like, what's your thought process whenever you reach out to them? Are you thinking, I want to ask this person questions? Or are you thinking they'll get a lot of views or people will like this or what?
I tend to think about, my problem these days is that it's become kind of a machine for me. And so the machine takes away some of the heart and some of the need. In the beginning, it was seeing someone do something well and saying, I want to know how you did it, or seeing somebody make a statement that seemed a little bit outrageous and it pushed a button in me and then saying, can I interview you about it to understand, is this real or not? And so that's where it started. And then at some point it does become kind of a machine and does lose a little bit of that heart. I don't know who I'm going to interview tomorrow, but I have a process to make sure that my audience will care about them, that someone on my team knows that I will care about them. And that's helpful. But now that you bring it up.
Well, I mean, I always thought, like, where does this go long term? So I remember when I first started this, I was like, I'm going to do one interview per week because we got the process down where it goes relatively quick. And I was like, I do one interview a week. Here's the problem. You also got to promote one interview a week then. And it's a lot of interviews, especially to ask someone like, hey, watch this, me for talking for an hour with a person. It's a lot. And sometimes it's a little bit disjointed, right? If I talk to you, then I talk to Gary Vaynerchuk, this other person, it's a little bit disjointed. And so I always thought I was going to do 250 episodes. I don't know why. I really pulled that number out of my ass. But I thought, like, some of these podcasts, like you've seen, yours has been around forever, but a lot of people started and then went. And they interview like 100 people, and then they're like, damn, this is hard. Like, I got to do this all the time. I think there's like too many episodes. Like, people are interviewing for the sake of interviewing, it seems.
It could be that at some point it's going to die. I would say that you don't have to promote every interview. You don't have to sit and listen to each interview on double speed and do something. I think that what you could do is just say, I care about meeting these types of people. I just want to have a process where I can meet these people, have a conversation with them, and then leave it for the audience to listen to. And maybe this is not the thing that you promote and produce. It's just a part of your personal education, and then let everyone else learn along with you. And that'll free you up to say, what am I just genuinely curious about this week? And go find that.
That's pretty cool. I actually like that answer. That's a very selfish answer. I'm into it.
Yeah, I think that the best interviews tend to be the most selfish interviews, the ones where you can see that someone's hunting for something. And it's true for mine. One of the interviews that I did was with Cameron Harold, who used to be the CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. At the time, my business was so like disorganized because everything was on me and I was overwhelmed. And I threw all the lessons out the window and I just said, Cameron, I need to hire someone. I don't know how to do it. It's not working out. And we just did like a coaching session, but the audience loved it. I got a lot out of it. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Is that a thing? Like a lot of your guests become friends, or some of them? Or
I think so. I think to some degree, absolutely. Some unfortunately you never see again and you don't talk to again. And then others you end up becoming long friends with.
So how does a podcast make money? Like, what are the different ways you've seen, like, you've made money off the podcast or a subscription?
And I can tell you about other ways that other people have. For me, I started out with advertising, and then I added membership. The first thing that I did with membership was people said that they would pay for my older interviews. I said, great, I'll lock up the older ones. And if people have membership, they could pay a monthly fee and they get access to all the older ones. I like that because I just needed something to put into the membership. And then I added more stuff like courses, and you did a course for us on copywriting, and other material went into the membership. There's someone who helped me, a guy named Bob Heiler, helped me like think about the business side of my business. One of the things that he started doing was doing interviews with, he liked getting leads for lawyers. So he started interviewing the kinds of people that he wanted to do business with. And at the end of the interview, after people were done, they go, so what is it that you do? And then he'd tell them how he helps lawyers get new clients by doing ads for them. And they'd say, you know what, I could use that. So now they've gotten to know him for an hour. They've gotten to trust him. They've seen that he took an interest in them. They trust him, and they end up hiring him to get leads for them. And I think that that's a very valid business model. The other thing that it does is he gets to learn the lingo. He gets to understand what lawyers care about, how they talk, how they promote themselves, what they're looking for.
That's interesting. Interview peeps you want as clients.
Yeah. Do it as for business development. There's so many people you can reach out and sell to, but
it's so funny. I'm talking to a company. I won't say the name of the company, but it's like a big company that we're talking to about doing like a public experiment like this. And I was like, I like them as a client because they bought a bunch of memberships for their marketing team. And I was like, what if we should do like a podcast episode with them where we just like redo their stuff like on the fly?
That's interesting.
That was like the number one thing that I found out last month, that like most people just don't know what we do. They have no idea. And we're just like, if you have a webpage, we'll help you redo that webpage, make it convert more. Just simple.
You did this other thing with us. So we've hired you over the years. And one of the things that you did with us was you got together with us and you helped us rewrite material, and you did it in real time. You didn't want to see anything ahead of time. You did it with us. Then, because you were so good at it, we brought on one of our sponsors onto a Zoom call with you, our writers and the sponsor, and we said, here's what they do.
Yeah.
Will you tell us how I, Andrew, could promote them better in my podcast? And dude, in real time, you were riffing, and it was amazing to see how you come up with ideas in real time, how you understand what we're trying to do, how you give us different options. It was fan-frickin-tastic. I think there's something in that.
Well, I mean, that's what we do, but at scale, right? So we have, like, obviously there's only one of me. So we do office hours where people talk one-on-one and people can join and ask questions and all that stuff.
You mean within the community?
Yeah, within the community. We do it every week. And I think the bigger thing that's going to scale even larger is like we have a forum. So I call it a forum, but it's a community, call it whatever you want. But basically I have to be able to take like a giant landing page and be able to give a lot of feedback on different parts of it. And so a forum seems to be the best way to do that. A Facebook group it's impossible. You literally can't do it with that tech.
I hate Facebook for that.
I don't hate Facebook for that. It just, for our use, it just didn't work. It's not possible. And so we had to make our own thing. And so we do that at scale. So when people are in there, they're like, oh, I didn't realize you do this. I'm like, yeah, we're doing a bad job. So I'm almost thinking like on this, what if instead of just talking to you, we would like bring up your page and go through it live and somehow we superimpose the page. That could be a cool twist on the podcast instead of just interviewing.
I think it makes sense. I think that if you think about selfishly, what do you need? And if you think about your audience, what do they need? I think that's the goal of it. I think when we start to think of ourselves as performers, when we start to think of ourselves as the next David Letterman because we saw something Letterman did years ago, we lose it. It has to be, I didn't even ever call my stuff a show. I just don't want it to be that. I'm not a performer. I just wanted to understand what people do. If you could just bring on one of your customers, if you could bring on somebody who signed up but didn't complete the purchase and just talk to them. What are they going through? I feel there's a lot of value in that, in you learning and you doing customer discovery, in you talking to people who did buy from you. I think there's something in that.
Yeah, I've done all that stuff in private. But you know what? But you know what the problem is? Like, I'm going to remember this conversation, one, because it's on video, one, because it's on audio, and the other because I took notes on it. So I'm going to remember this conversation. Those conversations, I get really excited. I take a sentence or two of notes, and then I forget. So, that's a very good suggestion for this.
And I'd say also for anyone who's listening to us, I think that they should just chill out on the idea of what a podcast is. If they're thinking, I'd like to do it, I'm not sure, I think that they should absolutely do it. And the thrust of it should be, who are they curious about, who they want to talk to, who they want to learn from, and stop reaching for like the people who've written the books that are on your bookcase, but think about the people who are in their world, like their boss from college, the person who's in a community that they're with, that they see that they're a step ahead or they're doing something interesting. Just learn from them, get to know them. That's the goal. Don't try to do a show. Don't try to beat someone else's numbers.
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people try to copy, like, especially dudes, try to copy like Joe Rogan, Howard Stern, that kind of stuff. It's like, you're not them though.
You know what? If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. But that's not really what we all want to do. I think that there are two different aspects of us. There's an aspect that just wants to be super famous and wants all that, and good luck. I mean, I think it's great. Do it. But there's another part that's a little bit simpler that would do the informational interview if we could, that would just say, I see someone who's rich. How did you get so rich? I see someone who did this thing I want to do. How'd you do the thing I want to do? How'd you finish writing a book? How'd you do a marathon? Whatever it is you want to learn from them, just do that. And let the fact that you're doing it as a podcast be the excuse. Let the fact that now everyone's allowing podcasters to grow, let that be a thing for you. Let the fact that the person you want to talk to is probably curious about podcasting themselves and will do it just to see what your process is. Let that be the thing. And then once you start to figure out how to ask the right questions, how to learn from somebody, it's just invigorating. And they're going to love you because you've tapped into who they are. You genuinely took an hour to learn from them.
There's an interesting analogy of Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, the lead guitarist on that.
Okay.
Rage Against the Machine still to this day sounds completely unique from any other band in history. And he always talked about, he went to Harvard and he would practice like 8 hours a day. And he had told a story that the reason his guitar playing, most people are like, is that a guitar that he's playing? What is that thing? He's just like, I realized early on that it was a piece of wood and a couple of strings and some like basic electronics. You can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't have to be just strumming an A chord or something like that. You do whatever you want. And I like how he kind of just went his own way with that and created this totally unique thing that's almost like impossible for anyone to recreate.
Now I want to go back and hear their music. I don't remember it standing out like that.
You don't remember Rage Against... Dude, you can get the hell out of my house. Yes. Okay, so from Rage Against the Machine to podcast sponsorships. Is this a big part of Mixergy? Like sponsorship, like, is this a big part of your revenue? Or
it goes on and off. It varies. There was a period there where I wanted to get rid of membership because less things you have behind a paywall, the more people discover you and things grow. And so I was about to get rid of it. And then I interviewed this woman whose whole business was membership, and she said that she'd like to have both because at one point in like 1999 or 2000, when the whole internet went bust, she hated that all her revenue went away because she put all her eggs in one basket. And I thought, you know what? I'll be a little bit safer, and I'm glad I was, because there's some years that advertising is so big that it dwarfs memberships. There's some years where membership is so big that you think, why am I even dealing with advertisers? Why am I helping them out? And why am I distracting from selling my own stuff? It goes up and down, and what I've discovered is that it's a nice way to balance things to have both.
That's a very interesting take. I thought one would just dwarf the other for some reason.
I did too.
I guess you said something.
Truthfully,
it
some years
fluctuates.
one does dwarf the other. Yeah.
Very interesting. Did you ever hear about the Tim Ferriss experiment that he did, where he removed advertising for a while, and people revolted and were like, "No, we want the advertising."
You know what? I get it. I've learned not to disbelieve him, but I don't think I would ever bolt from advertising. But as a listener, I can't imagine going, "I'm not listening, Tim, because your ads aren't there." But
you know what? At first I thought, I was like, is he bullshitting? 'Cause so for context, Tim Ferriss became post-economic, as Balaji Srivastava would call it, where basically he never needs any more money because he got rich as hell off of Twitter and Uber IPOs and stuff like that, right? So had hundreds of millions of dollars, and he said, you know what? I don't really need to have advertisements in my show, so I'll just get rid of them, see what happens. And it turns out people actually really liked his advertising because he would talk about products he liked, and they would discover new products, much like AppSumo or The Hustle or something like that people discovered things through it. And I actually agreed. I listened to some of his episodes where it went straight into it, and I thought I would like it. And I was like, I do kind of like that he mentions new products, though. Like I heard about like 8 Sleep or other like different brands through that. And I was like, okay, I can see why people want to hear the advertising because he only vets the good ones.
Yeah.
And you kind of believe him that like he wouldn't advertise something really shitty because he doesn't need the money. So,
you know what? I've taught my audience how to skip ads. You can just say, hey, Siri, jump forward 30 seconds, skip this. I've even created a button on my phone. I could show it to you. It's called the Nuke It button. Right there, Nuke It. It will skip 90 seconds in any podcast. And all I have to do if I'm running and I don't like the ad, I can just say, hey, Siri, nuke it. And it just runs that one shortcut that I created and jumps forward a minute and a half. The ads are done.
Ha!
It's totally fine. I want people to skip ads that suck. It's in their power to skip ads that suck. I think then it makes it more interesting for us to say, how do we make these ads more interesting? For me, I tend to have advertisers who want to buy the whole year. And so what do you do to make an ad interesting? So if I have HostGator over and over again, what do I do? And what I discovered was I kind of like how The Hustle in their podcast, they'll come up with ideas. Mm-hmm. And so since HostGator is great for hosting websites, I'll turn to my guest, and I always include my guests in the ads. I'll say, HostGator is a place to go host websites. If you had nothing but a HostGator account and you had to start from scratch, what idea would you come up with? And these entrepreneurs always have a bunch of ideas, and they'll throw one out and say, here's what I would do. And I think it's fascinating. I talked to this one guy, his whole business is about helping companies ship their products out at the right rate. I said, what would you do? He said, Andrew, what you need is a product that people need to buy over and over again. And it has to be ideally small so that shipping is inexpensive. And as we were talking, we both brainstormed together and we said, what about spices? A lot of spices don't have much flavor. He goes, that's exactly it. McCormick is the big brand for spices. There's no new McCormick of the internet, something that has like more spicy spices. And he goes, light, it makes sense. So now I'm getting the advertising to be more content. And then the fact that there's an ad connected to it, I think it's helpful.
Interesting. Okay. Something you said blew my mind. You said someone bought the whole year. I never even thought of that as a concept.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Because we've had some sponsorships here and there for like our email list and stuff. I was just experimenting with it. And it was like pretty good money, actually. I was like, that could be a whole other revenue stream for sure.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. So...
And doesn't Tim Ferriss also, he has affiliate programs in his email, right? So he'll do an email with different products that he recommends. He makes money from affiliates. I think there's another thing to that, Neville, that we want to know what our audience cares enough about to buy. And if we're just running our own products, I don't think we're exposing ourselves to enough ideas. I also have sponsors who will come in for just a couple of weeks. And I want to see, does the audience care about their products? Am I missing a need that somebody has in the audience?
What, so you've always been doing video interview also, right? Like
I don't publish it anymore, but yes.
Okay, but you used to.
Yeah.
Did you ever do clips? Because I noticed that's kind of like a new thing. Like I know I started seeing it from Joe Rogan. All those comedians I follow do the same thing. So I started doing clips.
I can't make my clips work. I can't take somebody's story and edit it down in a way that tells the story well. Whenever I get into that, I feel like I should just tell their freaking story because it's too disjointed to do it. But I definitely like when Joe Rogan does it. I've seen other people do it well too.
I mean, that's why I organize these the way I did. So I have podcasting, promoting a podcast, content, marketing, interviewing. Like I have all these sections.
Yeah.
And so someone takes the notes down and then like we cut it after the interview.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. I talked to a couple of YouTube consultants and they were also just curious how the clips channels go because I have a separate clips channel where instead of this whole interview, you can get like the individual clips.
I think I might see that from your email, but don't you do 10-minute clips?
There's no time limit on them. Like I think this section, like it's going to be podcasting plus promoting a podcast. This might be a 20-minute clip. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we just kind of go back and editing and do it. But I was just curious if you had any thoughts on that because it seems like this new era of like there's the big content, then there's the kind of mid-sized content, and then you can really pare it down to like a 1-minute TikTok type.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm super into chess right now, and I watch chess videos. Some of these chess YouTubers are so phenomenally interesting that they will do clips of like 60 seconds of them analyzing a game or 60 seconds of them falling off a chair, and they get tens of thousands of views on these new clips.
Yeah, it's kind of just this whole other thing. I don't think one's better than the other necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, for some things, it's better. If you want to learn how to cook an egg right away, a 60-second video can probably do it. You don't have to watch a 20-minute Bobby Flay video about it. Let's talk about promoting a podcast.
Okay.
So recording a podcast is one thing. That's a whole other can of worms that, people can go down and do. But then you have to actually promote the damn thing. What channels for you have historically been the best? Is it like social media, word of mouth, email? What kind of stuff?
My ideal is when the guest promotes. And I don't know if I should reveal who told me this, but one of there's a great podcaster who has a huge following who says that before he gets into the interviews, I think I even talked about his name in the book, so maybe it's okay to do it, but he'll say to the guest, after this interview is done, I'm going to email it to my audience. I'm going to put it on my podcast feed, and it's really big. I'm going to get all these different ways for people to hear how great you are, and they're going to love you because of it. What can you do to help me out to promote this so that more people see how great this interview is? And now he's putting all this pressure on the guest. He's saying, I'm doing all this. It feels weird not to reciprocate. And so guests will come back and say, I could promote it here and there. And so I've done that. That by far is the most effective. I just don't feel great about doing it. I don't want my guests to feel like we're in this together, but it's incredibly effective. And frankly, when I'm on a podcast, I want people to know that I'm on the podcast. I want them to know that I'm important enough that Neville's going to have me here at his house. He's going to have Sam record it, that there's going to be all this editing work, right? I want them to know that I'm important enough to do it. And still, when you're going to email me, I'm going to go, I don't know. It feels a little bit too self-aggrandizing to promote this. It feels a little bit too, I don't know, much about me. And so I'm not going to do it. But if you emailed me back and said, Andrew, before we did this podcast, you said that you have a good list that really wants to know who you are, and you never talk about yourself. You told me to remind you to send this out. Here's a little sample of what you can email out to the list.
Okay.
Boom. Now I'm telling my audience, they already know me. They want more me. You're wincing. I know the feeling.
It's cringy as fuck though. Okay. What about this? What about this idea? So I've thought about this. I know I can ask someone, I'll be like, I have my friend Noah or someone over here who has a following. And I could be like, hey, can you promote this? It seems like I'm almost sacrificing part of my relationship with that person for this little transaction that is insignificant in the very long run, I think.
To have them promote?
However, I thought about this.
Go ahead.
So the reason we have this whole setup going on over here and all this crap, and I spend money on this and stuff like that, and Sam's over here helping us produce, is hopefully this interview is so good and looks so good. I don't think it's 100% there yet. There's a couple little technical things I want to kick up. But I think it's going to be so good, you're going to want to promote it. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen like when you go to like a wedding, they have a professional photographer and they take like this awesome picture of you and share that one?
Yeah.
I just want it to be so goddamn good that other people just want to share it.
I've seen interviews that are that good. When Creative Live used to do, I forget the founder's name, when he used to do interviews, he would make them look so good that people would have to share it to go, this is where I want.
It looks like real TV, like a real movie or something.
Yeah, like when I walked in here, I wanted a photo of this place because it looks so good. I get what you're going for. I think that's big.
Yeah. So, we got a little, extra background stuff here. I'm going to kick up the lighting, a little extra soundproofing, stuff like that. But ultimately just make it so good that people want to share it. I think that's going to be my strategy. Because I always thought about this, like one thing I learned about growing an audience is asking people to share. And I'm not sure I'm that guy.
I know what you mean.
I feel bad about it. And I think like if it's so good, they'll share it. And maybe it's just not
true though.
Maybe it's not good enough.
Yeah, it's not true. Because I know myself, I want people to see it. They want to know my stuff. I just don't do it because because I don't want to be that guy too. But I need to. Some people need the push.
Well, maybe. So I also think that it's a dynamic of power at some point. So let's say this podcast is huge and have trillions of subscribers. Then I could be like, look, Andrew, you better share this shit because, I'm putting you on my stage.
Maybe.
Whereas right now it's like, I feel like you're doing me a favor.
I don't know. I don't know that that's true. And I do think that overall people need to promote. All right, here's another thing that's worked really well. Find somebody who's already like this week going big in a community and then go interview them while they're big. So there are all these little communities. You're in the copywriting space, the entrepreneurial space, the online business space, right? There are all these little communities, these Reddit communities, the Twitter communities, the indie hackers community. Occasionally there'll be someone who just goes to the top of indie hackers, right? You see that there's incredible interest in them. Do the interview with them as fast as possible and post it while everyone's still curious. Who is this guy? How did they go from something to a zillion, right? There's someone who does the NFT thing, whatever it is. That's really big because there's already a proven demand for them right now. And I'll add one last one that always works. Anything news related. So if you see something that's in the news right now, you're going to see it come up with NFTs. You're going to see it come up with, online businesses, whatever it is. As soon as it's in the news, do the interview with the person that's in the news as fast as possible. People are already talking about it. It's going to do great.
I mean, one thing we go over the stats of YouTube every once in a while. And like I said, the interviews never do as good number wise, but their watch time is through the roof. But the thing that really gets the subscribers is like the normal YouTube videos. Like, hey, it's Neville teaching you how to do copywriting stuff over here. Those tend to be the ones that are the cash cows or the subscriber cows that year after year, day after day, you're getting 10, 20, 30 signups per day from it. You're getting blog post traffic. You're getting SEO because YouTube relates to it's
I don't even know frankly, I don't watch videos on YouTube. I don't know who's doing it. You watch video. I'm a podcast person. I do it all day long, but you do it on YouTube?
Yeah. I listen. I pay for YouTube, of course.
Me too.
I don't want to listen to all the ads.
Actually, no, I don't. I use my sister's family account.
Guys, such a cheapo. But so I just don't want anyone to see like all the videos I'm looking up. It's.
She can see the videos. Oh, who cares? Let her see it.
Yeah, and it's pretty embarrassing.
Okay.
but I'll even watch a YouTube video and then put it on. Like you could turn it off if you pay for it.
What are you watching?
I watch all sorts of stuff.
Okay, what's the most embarrassing thing?
Embarrassing thing?
Don't hold back. Be open.
Well, it's nothing like crazy. It's not like porn or anything like that. I watch like Indian head massage videos.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Sam Parr, we were doing this one thing where we were going through like weird videos, and he was like, "I watch all these weird things," and he looked it up. I'd like watched all of them like that. Like it's like ASMR kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes at night I'll be watching a picture of a video of someone getting a haircut,
just to relax.
I don't even know why.
Okay.
I guess so. Yeah.
All right.
There's something about it.
All right.
That kind of stuff. But anyways, I watch YouTube for everything. So
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I go to sleep with an AirPod in my ear, and I listen to now YouTube educational videos that are story based, and the whole night. That's all I have.
Wait, so you are listening to YouTube then?
Not for interviews.
Not for
interviews. I do on Spotify.
I listen to a lot of comedians, Theo Vaughn and Brendan Schaub, these comedians that were on Joe Rogan. They have a podcast called King of the Sting. Mark Norman has 2 podcasts. We Might Be Drunk and Tuesdays with Stories.
Okay.
So it's with different comedians. I listen to pretty much 100% of every episode of those.
Wow.
All of those.
All right. So
that's like at least 4 hours of interviews per week. Those guys are listening, and that's just them. There's other ones I listen to.
All right. It might just be me. I'm still I podcast all the time.
But so why have you never moved to YouTube? You were doing video interviews. I remember people would be like surprised how you even had 2 people on a screen.
I know.
Remember back in like the
that I could make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. People are like, how do you do that? That was the number one thing.
I know. And I'd have to spend time showing them how to do that. Yeah, I absolutely remember that.
Why'd you never make the jump?
I did. And then what I found was, and maybe we should go back into it. I found that people thought of me as the video person, and they wouldn't go to YouTube to go look for the interviews. And if they weren't watching it online, then they would think that I don't exist as a YouTuber, as a podcaster. And they say, go watch podcast. I'm sorry, they say you should launch a podcast. And I say, I did a podcast before podcasting was a thing.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to show people that podcasting was where I was.
Well, because I remember back in even just a few years ago, YouTube was not YouTube. Like it existed as basically like a video host for like 30-second clips, and then it got longer. It was like you could do 2
They
minute
made
clips.
a real effort a few years ago to go longer.
10-minute clips, so long as it's not like a Simpsons episode or something copyrighted.
Yep.
And so they did that, but it was just more used as a video host. Like none of us took it seriously back then. Like I remember we had like even for AppSumo, I had one, Noah had one. We had YouTube channels, but no one took it as like a thing. It was just a free hosting service, which we all thought was going to like die. And then like,
no, now it's phenomenal. Now it's got to be more valuable than Netflix if it was a standalone product. Netflix is still too much to invest in time. This is, you're listening to it, watching it all the time.
Yeah, I think Netflix still, like, it sounds cool when you have like a Netflix deal. It's kind of like you went to Harvard. It's like this pre-validation type of thing. Okay, so why not video? So because I'm still torn about like, should I just distribute these on audio or video? And I think my answer is all, like just all.
I think you should do all. Frankly, maybe we should bring back all. I was doing video first and then the audio second, and then we started shifting to getting more people in the podcast. I found the podcast was number one and video was taking away from it, so I got rid of it, but maybe we'll add it back.
Huh, yeah. Interesting. Do you do like SEO,
No.
At all?
I don't. I probably should. I don't. Where I optimize all my time is in the questions. How do I get people to be more open? How do I get to know a little bit more about them? I will not ever once go through the SEO of my site, but I will get every interview transcribed. I'll go through, I won't listen to myself because I want to see the mechanics of what worked. And I will say, why did this person get open? Why did this person get angry at me? What happened here? And to study a conversation to that degree, to me, is fascinating. And that's all I want to do. I want to understand what makes people feel alive in a conversation. What gets them to be open? Why do they want more of a conversation? What is it? That's where I'm obsessed.
What about the transcription? So we started doing transcriptions with like rev.com or one of those.
We use Descript because that's what we use to edit. And then in addition, if I want my own transcript, I have an account with Otter. I'll upload my interview to Otter and I'll analyze it. And then if there's someone else who's done a good interview, I will upload it to Otter and I will transcribe it and have it and go through. I've taken old interviews. Like there was one with Barbara Walters interviewing Richard Nixon. Mm-hmm. I want to know, what did she do? How did she do it? I'll give you an example of one of the things that she did. So at the last question that she had for him was, do you regret not discarding, not destroying the tapes that did him in? You know, he was recording in the White House. She didn't give much time to explain. There was just like less than a minute left before the whole live show was over. He has to come up with a quick answer. His answer is, yes, I do regret it. So now here she is getting him to admit that he wished that he had destroyed these tapes. Those little techniques of when she asked the question, how much time she gave him, those are things that are fascinating to me.
Well, like back to transcripts, it was kind of like, we've been doing it. I'm like, is it useful? Do people read the transcripts? Do people tell you, because you've always put the transcripts up, do people tell you they read them?
People absolutely do read them, but it's more than that. It's researchers who go through it. It's the associate at the venture firm that's looking into someone that they want to invest in, who's not going to hang out and listen to an hour-long podcast, but just wants that one segment, wants to search for some random thing, and that's what they're looking for. Now, transcripts used to cost, I used to spend $100 per episode to get it transcribed. They cost nothing now. You might as well make it available to people, and it's easy enough to do.
Huh, interesting. I was talking to Jordan Harbinger, our buddy who ran the Art of Charm and now the Jordan Harbinger podcast. And he says that, I mean, it's like authors that want to come on podcasts.
Yep.
Have you noticed that it really does move books? Like podcasts move books?
I think so. Anecdotally, I will absolutely see that my audience will tell me that they bought books more than they'll tell me they signed up for software or anything else. Yes.
Huh. I've noticed it personally, yes, for my case, because I bought the James Dyson's book because I listened to him on Tim Ferriss' podcast. Even though I heard him talk on the podcast, I'm like, I still want the book.
I know. I think that there's something about a book. It's such a major investment that you really want to know that stuff before you go and buy it. Yeah. And then it's also such an easy financial investment that if you listen to someone, it's very easy afterwards to just go and buy a book. You're not going to overthink the price of it.
Although I have seen some podcasts where I listened to the podcast and I thought it was far better than the book. I was like, I could have just listened to the podcast.
I think if the interview is done really well, it will do better than the book.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. So what about any sort of content marketing that you've seen throughout the years? Is that part of your strategy? Is that a thing? Do y'all like?
I hate email, so I hate admitting it, but email does work really well, and I can't stand email. I can't stand email.
Why?
I've given up email over the years so much. Why? Because it's such a flood of information sent at us. It's so badly constructed. Why does email have a subject line and a body? Why can't email just have the subject line? Why do we have to go through? It's just, I hate it, but it works.
That's kind of like Twitter. It's just a bunch of subject lines, right?
Yeah, exactly. I prefer it was that. But I have to say, I really like your email. I read your email every time because it's image first, big text, quick like delivery of the punchline.
Talk about the
It's
stupid
phenomenal.
email.
The stupid email is so good. But even the others that you've done over the years, I like them. I like your approach
Thanks.
to email.
Well, instead of badly constructed emails, what about goodly constructed emails?
I almost
right?
hate good emails worse because they take
What?
up more of my time. Yeah, I hate email. I hate email, but it works.
That is the worst answer I've ever heard.
The best. It's
That's
the
so
one.
funny. So with Mixergy, like I know in the beginning you were doing a very unique thing, doing the interviews back then. So I'm assuming it grew a lot about like word of mouth and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I think that word of mouth was a big one. I think the fact that I would be deep in a community and then I would interview their heroes in the community is a big one. I think that today people say Andrew interviewed Paul Graham of YCombinator and he interviewed Brian, the founder of Airbnb. And it feels like it's these big names that are not easy to get interviews with. Mm-hmm. They were people who hardly anyone knew about on a small community called Hacker News. And so they said yes to do the interview. And then that small community would go and listen to the people who they were talking about. That's what did it. And I think that's still true to this day. You see people within small communities that they have a huge, passionate audience, huge for them, and they want to know about them.
Interesting. If you were to restart Mixergy today, would it be a traditional podcast or a YouTube interview channel? You ever thought about that?
I don't know. I really like long form, so it would probably be long form, even though there are these easy systems. Like I like Racket. I don't know if you've ever used Racket.com. Makes it super easy to do a 10-minute interview with someone. It's the easiest way to do an interview. So clean, so efficient.
Wait, what do you mean? What does it do?
They give you a single URL to give to someone. All they have to do is go in. As soon as they do, their iPhone or Android will say, "Can I have mic permission?" You say yes, and then they could talk to you. You say, "Here's what we're going to talk about." You hit record, it immediately records it, and then it turns it into a podcast of like 10 minutes or less. It's amazing.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's super easy. They even have the pre-interview time, so you don't have to do anything except just hit record when you're ready. But what I would do is I would not care about the audience. I'm not looking to be famous with this. I'm not looking for this to be a show. I'm looking for this to be Andrew has questions. How do I understand this? It's just amazing that we have this opportunity. When I was dating, imagine how many times I would ask a girl for her contact information. We'd have a great conversation. I'd get her phone number, and then I'd call and I'd get her voicemail, and she'd never call me back. I was dying to know, why don't you? Here's what I would do today. I would say, look, I'm going to go out to all the same places, and I'm going to ask women who don't call back, can I interview you about how you're finding people? Like, why would you give out a phone number? And I want to understand. And
be a good show.
Right. Exactly. What is it that we're curious about? And in retrospect, it was probably that, it was awkward to say no, so they would give me the phone
title
number.
could be called "Why Do I Suck?" Yeah.
Whatever.
That'd be yeah. I thought that would joke would get a bigger laugh, honestly.
I don't like that it was like,
geez,
suck.
thanks. Yeah. Need some more chord in this. Okay, so you've interviewed a ton of entrepreneurs and stuff.
Yes.
God, you probably get this all the time, but I was actually curious about this. What qualities do you see between like the top entrepreneurs?
I think a big one is they really see problems everywhere and they want to fix it. We remember when you weren't there. I was sitting down for dinner once with Noah Kagan, and he was asking for a cookie, and it wasn't there at the restaurant. It was right next door, and he thought, why wouldn't the person just go and get the cookie if I really am craving it? Right? We see these problems and we think, how do I solve them? And the best entrepreneurs are just amazing at noticing problems, and then they can't help but try to solve them. Paul English, the founder of Kayak, is a good example of that. He saw that there were all these different sites where you can find out what an airline ticket costs, but people would just naturally have to go and search all the different sites, and they accepted it because the early days of the internet, it was magic that you could even go do it. But he said, that's too much work. Why should they have to go to all these different sites? I see the problem. I see the pain. I'll aggregate it all in one place. Whether the airlines want it or not, I'll put it there. He's done so many other businesses over the years. One of them is Get Human. He just said, it sucks that we have to dial into Chase and then we have to go through the phone tree and we never get a human being. But if we know the right combination, then we'll get a human being. He goes, what if I put like a wiki essentially where anyone who knows how to get through to a human being could just put the answer up and the rest of us can go and get a human being. It's now called Get Human. It's another little side project that he has. He's created a bunch of businesses. He can't help but find problems, and he can't help but spend time solving them. And that's the thing that I've noticed the most, that these people will find problems and be aware of it, but where others are going to pontificate about how the world shouldn't be this way, they can't help but think, this is a solution. I've got to do it.
Do you think most of the entrepreneurs are smart, or do you think some of them are kind of dumb?
I don't know. I do think that they're smart in a world, for sure. In their world, they're super smart. It's amazing how smart they are. Huh. I think it's amazing how smart they are and how much now they spend a lot of time hiding it by pretending that all they're trying to do is save the world or something. I think they're smart. I think they also pretend they don't love money, but they love money. I think they pretend all this stuff isn't true because, they're smart enough to know what the world wants to hear.
Maybe in public they say money doesn't matter.
Right.
And to some extent it's true, but at the same time, they probably like money. Okay, so this is something I've been interested in. So community and memberships. I know there's like a lot of talk about creator economy and communities and all that kind of stuff. I don't see many people doing them really, really well. I have like a list that I keep of people that run good communities. There's a barrier to entry though to this list. You have to have at least 1,000 paid members, and you have to not be on Facebook groups.
That's what you're keeping. You're going to ask me, I hate communities too. I'm not really good at it. There is one community that did something really interesting. Will Schroeder from startups.com, he put me and these 3 or maybe it was 4 other great entrepreneurs on a weekly call. And then one of us said we need a way to talk in between calls, and we created a WhatsApp group. Mm-hmm. It's such a close bond to be able to, when you're talking to someone on the phone, to go into a chat with them. It's amazing. My friends who are Christian who go into these big churches will also have these small groups where a similar thing happens, where it's now this big group is going into a small platform, and now you care about the bigger group more because you're coming into a small platform. There's something about that I think even someone like me who hates groups gets a lot of value out of.
I like that analogy. I never thought of it like the church, and you have a little breakout group, or you have like a giant college class and you have your little TA session.
Right, or your small project where you get to bitch about the teacher and everything, but you're working on a single project. It's super helpful. Even in kindergarten, when my kid went into Zoom class, the teacher finally figured out how to do Zoom, and she put them into breakout rooms. And having them in a small group meant that the kids, like 3 or 4 other kids together, they got to know each other better, and they cared more about the bigger Zoom class that you did.
On the current iteration of, so Mixergy is a subscription. Do people still, I remember like the comments used to be a big thing on yours.
Yeah, comes and goes. Comments are dead.
Yeah?
Yeah, they might come back, but comments at some point died.
Huh. Oh, so have you ever thought of putting like a forum for Mixergy so people could talk or anything?
And we did a community. It worked out well. I just don't love communities. What I ended up shifting it to that I really enjoyed was I like in person. That's one of my problems. So I said, let's get guests who I've interviewed and we'll do dinners for them. And the guests want to know what other entrepreneurs are going through. And so we started hosting these dinners around the country, around the world actually, where one entrepreneur who I interviewed would get together with say 10 other entrepreneurs in their city, and they'd have dinner and they'd talk, and it created a great relationship.
Wait, but hold on. You said that it did well. So you put like a forum thing and people were using it. So what did you not like about it?
I don't like staying engaged all the time. I don't like staying engaged all the time. That's definitely one of my problems.
No, I mean, it's fair.
I like fully disconnected.
I mean, it's also one of the problems with the Facebook groups, right? What does Facebook reward? They reward contentious things that have a lot of... Sorry. They don't reward contentious things. They reward things that have a lot of engagement and activity, which is often contentious stuff. Mm-hmm. And then also, it's like the big questions get the most amount of answers. So if I'm in a copywriting community, everyone's always like, what's the first step to do copywriting? How do I make $1 trillion a day doing copywriting? Mm-hmm. What copywriting books are out there? It's like the same questions over and over. And Facebook kind of rewards that because those get the most engagement.
Yeah.
Keep people coming back to Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that's one of the things. I don't want a community that's just active for being active's sake, which a lot of Facebook groups are. They just try to engage their people just to keep engaging.
Right. Let's just ask a question of the day. And the question of the day is, where would you fly if you could fly anywhere? And then who cares? But they're sucking you in. I think your community is different because what you're doing is you're focusing it more on a direct result that people are aiming for, right? They're aiming for improving their copy and getting better at giving like feedback. Am I right?
Yeah. So if there's 10 posts on a thread, it's literally because someone said, here's my about page. Mm-hmm. I think it sucks and it's not working.
Yeah.
What can we do to make it better? And we say, try this, try this. They come back a week later. They're like, hey, we did it. We have a 3% higher open rate now or whatever. And we're like, cool. And then that thread dies. I think that's the important part.
That does
decay
suck.
function.
I hate that the threads die.
No, but it's good. I think it's a feature,
good?
not a bug. Yeah, because think about it. Imagine if Facebook groups, the threads kept growing, it would just go forever.
No, maybe the thread should die, but there's so much like utility in that, in what was said there, that I wish it could get saved. One of the things that
wait. They get saved. They don't die. They die of activity.
Mean there's no more conversation, but people save it. Yes.
But see, once it's solved, you don't need a lot more, unless there's some sort of follow up, and they can always still post. But like, you don't want to keep just going on the thread forever. Then it just gets old.
Okay, no, I see your point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like, my favorite community is Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, where they will have a question and then the top answer underneath it. And that could stand for years. And then maybe 5 years after the question was asked, somebody will come up with a better answer and it'll get updated. But it's so useful even after the fact that you can search.
But you know what Stack Exchange does?
What?
It says resolved.
But you can always come in and add something else to it, right? And improve it. But there is a resolution.
But that's where each thread is an asset to the community, not just like this random thing that goes away. Whereas Facebook groups, I know it still exists, but it's like,
not useful.
If you go to like the Hustle Trends group or something and scroll back 20 pages, you're still on like day 4.
We're not doing it. But how great would it be if somebody could say in the Hustle, give me the 20 best ideas all time here. Give me the 20 best moments of the podcast. I don't know. I do wish that it survived.
Yeah, hopefully Facebook comes out with some better organization.
Or maybe someone else will come up with it.
Maybe, yeah. So I know you've done, so you have your main membership, that's been like the primary thing. Yep. And I know you've done like other courses and academies or whatever you want to call it. How would those compare to like just like a subscription for Mixergy?
Of all the things that I've done, the subscription is the one that lasts the best and the best thing that I've done of all of it. Because the courses, if I do a bigger course, I've seen that people do these multi-$1,000 courses, and I think there's huge value in that. I get much more invested when someone's spending $3,000 on a program. I think it's just phenomenal. And I have more to give, right? There's a bigger budget to make sure that they're taken care of, that we mail the thing that they want. But the subscription in many ways is like a SaaS product where people are invested month after month after month. You know, there've been times when I've just been burned out, but the subscription continues to go and the people are still there, and it's helpful.
And I've noticed for a long time, because I have a site called swipefile.com where we track people's pricing and stuff like that and just whatever. So you've had your subscription as like $47 a month for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Is that like the magic number for some reason?
You know what it was? I discovered at some point that people who really want it at a certain point will pay. They could even pay $100 a month. If there's a thing, they'll pay for it. And then if they don't really want it and they're on the fence, the thing that will get them to say yes is a discount that's temporary. So we went from $25 a month to $50 essentially. You're saying 49. I'm going to up it to, I'm going to say it's 50, right? $50 a month. And if somebody wants the thing, they'll sign up for it for $50 a month. I'll try to transition them to annual. And Neil Patel years ago said, try to switch people over to annual. It's less of a pain in the neck for them, and it's great for you. It's all the way around. It's fantastic. So we do that. And then we'll do discounts every once in a while. There'll be one for Thanksgiving, Black Friday, whatever.
That sounds pretty much like what we're doing.
Is that what you're doing too?
Yeah, we did. So we started the actual forum like in 2019. It's been 2 years or so since we started it. 2 years, 5 months, something like that. And we tried all these different price points just to see what would happen. And I hate this about the world, but you try all these new things. Like you try different crazy prices, try different structures, but it always comes back to the same goddamn thing. Which is like $97 a month or $497 yearly. Like those just somehow stick. Like I don't completely get it. I think it's just like people are so used to it that it's not a big deal. Also, it just kind of makes sense. Like you save a little bit of money if you go. It
does make sense. People have all figured it out, and like I don't know what the logic is behind it, but maybe that's the number that you can charge your company or something. I don't know.
People are just used to it. Yeah.
You know what I wish I'd done though is I wish I'd had a company-wide price. I've always geared myself towards entrepreneurs, but companies buy in bulk. Companies buy this type of thing like it's nothing. If I think about when I spend money for myself, I'm much cheaper. When someone on my team needed better writing and they told me that you offered the consulting package, I said, absolutely go buy the consulting package, because I know what I'm paying the person who's going to go work with you to pay them to pay a little bit more to make them much more useful. It absolutely makes sense. And I think that there are a few different options that I could have considered, but to have a package for a company is really helpful.
We have that, and people have done it, but it was just kind of pulled out of my ass. How have you seen that done well before?
The easiest thing is to just say this is for the whole company. But you know what I've seen? So I've interviewed people who've done courses, and I've tried to understand what they're adding into it. Some way for the boss to see progress is a big one. I don't really believe that the boss ever checks to see, did everyone go through it? But I think it's very satisfying to know that you will get to see progress. To see that they've gone in on a regular basis, they're doing this thing.
I literally answered that email before this question. The guy's like, is there a way to just track if
did they? Yeah.
Or did they even log in? Like, am I spending money and getting something out of it, or is this down the toilet?
Right. And then overall, if the person knows that their boss is watching, maybe that increases their utility of it. It's a really great feature. And it's great for companies to be able to offer extra perks.
We've just been doing actually yearly seats. So we take our yearly price, whatever it is, and then we say you just buy a bunch of seats in bulk. So just send us the list of emails and we'll do that.
Okay. Yeah.
We're trying to make it fully automated right now. Just with subscription stuff, it gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But not really. So, but yeah, that's always a good thing when, like, you know, a marketing company will buy, 12 seats for their people.
And you've had that happen where
someone will
come in. Isn't that great?
Yeah. I mean, it's so far that onboarding process has been a little ghetto in terms of just like they email us and then we send it back and forth, but we're going to automate it. And so hopefully that becomes more of a thing, because honestly, those people are the best.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll buy what we think is a large number to us, but then to their company, it's like nothing, right? It's a drop in the bucket. And we'll help them improve like one email for their sales team. And it does it 3% better. And they're like, yeah, this means millions of dollars for us. So we don't give a shit about the, 10 grand we dropped on you or whatever.
Yeah. And for some reason, I just didn't think that way, but it's so helpful to think that way.
Interesting.
Right.
I knew this one guy who ran a course company, just basic courses on how to do like a large IT company's products, right? A lot of complicated products. And he just made courses on that. And a company bought them for $40 million. That company bought them for $40 million. And I was like, what?
Okay.
And it's just like, for them, that is not a big number.
Wait, bought the whole business for $40
million. The whole business.
Okay. To integrate them in and give it to their employees? No, to sell the service.
Well, to give the employees mainly. That's it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And then also they sell to their retailers or something like that.
Okay.
I remember thinking like, what a crazy valuation that was. Because it's being sold to a larger company. And so, they got my brain turning a little bit, of course, like,
I think there's something here. I think copywriting for businesses, we're now seeing that everybody's in the copywriting space, right? We think about somebody who's creating ads for people, for their customers. But there are a few entrepreneurs who I interviewed on Mixergy whose whole business is to put together for companies all the branding materials they need. And I said, what the hell do you need that for? They said, well, think about when a bathroom's out of order. Some companies would feel great just writing on a piece of paper out of order and putting it up there. Other businesses can't have that. They need it to feel on brand or else it's going to look junky. Now, how do they know it's on brand? They used to have a Google Drive or a Dropbox thing, and it just doesn't work. They need to have it organized in a better way to know who checked what out and where things are used. And it's multiple businesses that are multi-million-dollar businesses just keeping the brands together. There's nothing for copywriting like that. When we think about how we write a letter, how we write an email out to the team, or to our clients, that's copywriting. And there's nobody who's done that, said everybody in the business is in the business of copywriting. I feel like you're onto something with this.
Yeah, just optimizing little things for company. My favorite is just the cold email outreach. Or the quick like sales pitch email. Those are the best because it's the most immediate results.
Yep.
Right. So I remember there's I can't talk about a lot of these because they're private, or the paid consulting stuff. There's a farming company, and farms sell like when they sell fertilizer, they don't sell like a bag of fertilizer. They sell like $3 million worth of fertilizer.
Okay.
And if they get one more farmer to buy $3 million worth of fertilizer, that's a lot of money.
So this was a client of yours who needed a way to improve that one email. So
and they have 12 people do outreach to companies. And so it's email, but there's also in the farming industry, there's a ton of calling going on, like Good Old Boys Network kind of. And the way they were outreaching was very just like dumb. It's like, hey, we've been around since 1945. And I'm just like, I don't give a shit about any of this. It's just like, we're 25% cheaper and we have local things near you. So the shipping cost is 300,000 instead of.
And that's
2
what you
million.
told them. That's
Yeah.
it.
I was like, put that in there. And they're like, they started selling more of this product. And they're like, cool. Yeah, that's what we needed. That's all we needed. Like, they don't care about any of the other videos or anything. They're like, that's what we wanted. And we're out.
I've seen you do this with people. I've seen you do it with me, where you'll hear what I'm trying to say and you'll just cut through everything and say, here's the approach. Do you then do what I did? Do you come back the way that I did with my interviews and say, what are the techniques I'm using without being aware of? Are you creating a Google Doc somewhere where afterwards, after a consulting call, you say, here's what I did that worked? After a forum post, say, here's what I did that worked or what didn't. Do you do that?
Yeah. We like in our members area, this is common stuff we do.
How formatted are you? How organized are you about your techniques?
I guess not very. I guess if you ask me, do I have an actual doc for that? No, there's no way.
But I know it's in your gut, and I know that it's repetitive. It's not like it's one time random out this way, and then if your gut's going that way, it's that way.
Some of it, but when you're talking about something very specific, like a cold email, I'm just like, cut most of the big words out, make all the words easy, bullet points, and strong call to action. There you go. That's the whole thing.
I think that'd be great. I think if you could find a way to condense it all into that, and even if it's not a book, but here's a forum with the things that we believe, and now we're going to link out to all the different examples of how you've done it, something in that.
Yeah, there's something cool
I know,
there.
or maybe I'm just super anal.
So, okay, cool. So let's do a little lightning round. So I'm going to time these actual questions. So I'm going to pull
wondering why you got your phone out. I said, is he taking text messages now?
Yeah, I'm sending text messages at the moment. Yeah, I don't care about you at all. So let me find my little clock app.
Round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are just 1 minute. I'll just time it just so you have it here. So, okay. So let's get started. Lightning round with Andrew Warner. If you were to start a podcast again today, how would you do it?
I would use the cheapest, simplest tool that's available out there. And it could even be freaking Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces. Find a topic that I'm interested in and iterate every single day. Have an interview every single day.
Wow. Every day. God damn. Cool. Great answer. And then one more. Okay. From all your interviews, what areas do you see growing?
It's these small, unfortunately, it's a lot of small SaaS companies. So it used to be that SaaS would make you a multi-millionaire huge. Now I'm seeing a lot of SaaS companies and everyone's just going to earn a nice living like, my dad did when he had a store selling clothes. It's not revolutionary as much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Andrew Warner, thank you so much for joining. What's the name of your book again?
Stop asking questions.
Stop asking questions. How did I do as an interview? What's the review? Let's get the Google review here.
I thought you were really good when I could see that you were hunting for certain things that you were trying to figure out for yourself. The community stuff, the advertising, the membership. You're trying to figure it all out for yourself. And that's where I felt like I was being useful and I saw that you needed something specific. Here's my advice that I would suggest for next time. You're super freaking organized. Look at all these questions that you've written ahead of time. Mm-hmm. I'd say check in before we got started so that you could ask some of these questions and see where I wasn't going to be super helpful. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That I went through them, but mostly I said, do I have a sense of where he's going? Is he going to ask me about my underwear? Is he going to ask me about something super personal? All right, he's not. Great, I'm good. But I feel like I could have done better or maybe dropped out some of the questions. I wasn't super useful about SEO, for example.
Oh yeah, but see, I like that answer that you gave. You're like, I don't do it. I'm like, okay, that's the question.
All right.
Yeah. So that's great. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good times. Hey, it's Neville here. And I'd love to explain 4 reasons getting on our email list can benefit your life. Number 1, every Friday we send out the stupid email, which is a swipe, thought, uplifting, picture, interesting, and drawing. People regularly say this is their most look forward to email they get all week. Number 2, we spend a lot of time and money filming great interviews about content marketing, copywriting, communications, growing a business, and just figuring out more about how the world works. For example, we've interviewed the CEOs of AppSumo, Udemy, The Hustle, and many more. There's so many golden nugget lessons we learn from each of them, and I hope you get in on this too. Number 3, a single idea can possibly change the trajectory of your life. Just one thing you learn or pick up from these emails can potentially have a gigantic impact on you. And number 4, we cover topics on how to grow a small business from just a side project to becoming something that's a full-time career. And bonus number 5, you can unsubscribe at any time. One click, poof, I am out of your life forever. Losing a subscriber is painful, so I've tried to make sure my email list is full of useful information to business owners and people trying to improve their copy and communication skills. So go to copywritingcourse.com and enter your email. We'll handle the rest. Thank you.